I entitled this, The Truth About Samhain. Alright, so it is Halloween. Halloween as a holiday evolved out of the festival of Samhain. It is one of the few of the Celtic holidays, Celtic Sabbaths, that did not get co-opted majorly into another celebration. It's not like Yule morphed into Christmas, or Ostara morphed into Easter, or Candlemas morphed into Groundhog's Day. No, seriously. Samhain's traditions, although, shall we say, updated, did maintain, and somehow it did not get it yet. There were attempts at All Saints' Day. No one cares. So let's talk about what is Samhain, what were its traditions, and how do they evolve in today. Also, we'll discuss how people have mucked with Samhain, and of course, all of the mispronunciations, calling it Samhain. It's fingernails on a chalkboard to me. All right. So, first off, we're going to have to deal with everyone's like, isn't it pronounced Samhain? No. It's a Gaelic word. It's like the Gaelic name Siobhan. If you see it spelled, you'll notice Siobhan has a B in it. If you looked at that, how does that become Siobhan? But it's Siobhan. Same with Samhain. So, now, let's get into what it was. So the first thing you have to understand, and again, we're going back to the days of the Celts. Unlike now, the Celts only recognized 2 seasons because it was just practical. They had summer and they had winter. They had the warm time of the year and the cold time of the year. And Samhain marked the dividing line. The literal translation of Samhain is summer's end. It's literally, all right, it's no longer, it is the official, we are now no longer in summer, it is now winter. But there are other things that go along with that. Now, first thing you've got to understand, don't say no, Sensuna, I have studied this. I happen to know I am actually correct about this. So, here's how it works. The Celts, all of their holy days, all of their holidays, their Sabbaths, were based on the agrarian cycle. And generally had to do with things like, now is time to plant the seeds. Now is time to harvest. Things like that. Now, specifically, the Celts had 3 harvest festivals in around July. We had Lammas, which was the wheat harvest. The wheat stalk have grown, we're going to harvest the wheat. Then you had Mabon in the fall, the fruit harvest. And then you finally come to Samhain. And Samhain is the last preparation for the harsh winter. Because Celtic, they had harsh winters. And part of what they would do is it was time to bring the animals in from the summer fields to be penned for the winter. And of course, also at that time, you would slaughter any of the animals you needed for meat during the winter and prepare for it. And hence, Samhain was also known as the blood harvest. This is all going to be very relevant soon. Now, so these blood harvest, summer's end, moving into the cold time of year. But on the spiritual side of things, because of this time of transition, They had beliefs that not only was it the time when summer becomes winter, but due to this, the barriers, the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead were at their thinnest. So many of their traditions at this time were born out of this belief. First off, if you had to go out on the night of Samhain, you had to protect yourself against wicked spirits that might be hunting you down to do you ill. And you would do that by going out in disguise, dressed in a way that you do not normally dress, essentially pretending to be someone else, so that when the spirits came upon you, they were confused because you're not who they were expecting, and they will leave you alone. And we obviously see how that belief evolved into the costumes. Now next, they needed to protect the homes from those same evil spirits. So they needed a means to frighten those spirits off. So they would take turnips. The pumpkin is an indigenous plant of the American continent. They did not have pumpkins over in Ireland. So they would carve turnips into scaring faces, and this was the jack-o'-lanterns. This is what, and then finally, they would leave out offerings for the departed dead who would come visit at this time. Those offerings to the departed beloved ones is what evolved into the giving of candy. So right there, there's where the origins of so many of the Halloween traditions come from. And of course, why did it get associated with horror? Because it's a time when the dead walk the earth. And in Western culture, we tend to associate that with horror. So there you have. That's the basics. Now let's get into some more the juicy stuff. Because first off, I agree, Sensuna, about that. If you've ever seen a picture of a turnip carved into a jack-o'-lantern, that is far more disturbing than any, and I mean any, pumpkin you've ever seen. Hang on. Are you ready? I don't think you're ready. That's a turnip jack-o'-lantern, everyone. So here's where we get into, so some of you, of course, are thinking, but haven't I heard of there being a mythological figure known as Samhain, or that there was an actual deity or entity? Yes, you've probably heard those stories, and I'm going to explain where they came from. The first thing you have to understand is it had nothing to do with actual Celtic beliefs. Again, the word Samhain means summer's end. It denoted a time of year and was, of course, a celebration therein. Now, where does the idea of a mythological figure known as Samhain come from? So, first off, you're going to have to accept something here. It won't be hard because you're all children of the internet and social media. And so many of you are very used to the idea that some people can be very lazy and stupid, but want to seem smart. In the 18th and 19th centuries in England, there was a practice, let's call it armchair academics. These were people who wanted the accolades of academic success without actually doing any of the work. They were, So imagine an amateur archaeologist. Now, most amateur archaeologists at least get out in the field and try and do archaeology. That's just too much work for these people. Most of them were, well, let's face it, upper-class twits. They wanted to write their books and have get published without actually having to do any of that dirty field work. So they would mostly go to libraries or look up information to try and prove theories. And the one such individual was a gentleman by the name of Colonel Charles Valenci, who wrote a 6-volume set of books in 1770 that attempted to prove that the Irish people once came from Armenia. And he, in this work, is the first time you can reference there being a god named Samhain. Now, this was largely a minor footnote until the year 1827, when this concept would be picked up by a gentleman by the name of Godfrey Higgins. And Higgins wanted to prove that the Celts originally came from India. Now, here's the interesting fact. This has actually been proven to be, this is proven to have generally been accepted as correct. Now, today there is scientific evidence that backs this claim up. But in Higgins' day, that field work hadn't been done yet. So Higgins has working from a decent theory, but needs to prove it, but doesn't want to go out there and work on it. So he starts doing research in the libraries, as his kind is wont to do, and Higgins comes across Valenci's work and immediately picked up on the idea of the god Samhain. Then, during his research, he found that there was a Hindu deity named, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this, and I know that's funny when we're dealing with, my issue with how Samhain is properly pronounced, but it looks like it would be pronounced Samana. Samana. So not far off from how Samhain is spelt. And he kind of figured, well, here's my hook. But if he realized if he was going to present a deity, he should probably present a mythology with which to go with. So he started doing research on Samhain. And he did find reference to the harvest practices. And of course, he found reference to it being referred to as the blood harvest. And I think you see where this is going to go now. Because it was a very easy step for Higgins. Yes, Daedalus, he was right by accident. Anyway, very easy step for Higgins to go from, blood harvest to ritual sacrifice to ensure survival during the winter to appease a pagan god. And, of course, the belief of the dead roaming the lands due to the thinning veils made Samhain a god of the dead, terrorizing the people as the cold set in. And this was some nice, sensationalistic hokum that generally stuck in people's minds. And for years, and I mean years, if you looked up Samhain in the early days of the internet, all you would find was references to the Lord of the Dead. Fortunately, as time marched on and individuals like myself existed, who did more digging, more research, and went, well, actually, no, that's all bullshit. Today, if you do research on Samhain, you're more likely going to find the correct history and maybe some footnotes to Higgins' creation. Oh, some sites will still use Samhain as a character to vilify the season. You're celebrating the festival of an evil god. How could you know? We're not. We're celebrating the change in the season and giving kids candy. But this stuck in. But as I said, it has marched on. People now know the truth. Well, unless you talk about mass media. Start talking about screenwriters, all bets are off. So, you have so many TV shows and movies that latched on to Samhain and ran with him. So, of course, you've got the Trick or Treat movies, which I love. Movies, there's only one, although they are talking about a sequel. If you've never seen Trick or Treat, and it's Trick, then the letter R, then Treat, it's a lot of fun. You should watch it every Halloween. And its iconic character is Sam, who looks like a little kid in a onesie and a pumpkin mask. But he is, in fact, Samhain, who acts as the spirit of Halloween. And if you break the rules of Halloween, woe be upon you. Yeah, there are some good trick-or-treat. The creator keeps saying he did some shorts and has made reference he'd love to return to the concept. And I would love him to return to the concept. It was really well done. Then you get into where it really hurts us. So let's start with Supernatural. 15 years of Supernatural. But I want to say, pre-season 5. It was the same season they introduced Castiel. They had an episode called It's the Great Pumpkin, Sam Winchester. And this was during the season where they were dealing with the demons were trying to break 66 seals to unleash Satan. And one of those was raising Samhain, the demon of Halloween. And anytime they covered a tradition of Halloween, they made it twisted and evil. And this is largely because Eric Kripke. Here's the thing. I used to watch Supernatural. My sister used to watch Supernatural, and we had a contest trying to guess what part of the show, when they dealt with real-world mythology, did they screw up. And she already knew my feelings about misrepresentation of Samhain. I actually got a phone call in the middle of the episode. Have you thrown anything at the television set yet? The answer, by the way, was yes. They basically took Higgins' version of Samhain and kind of ran with it whole cloth. We're right now going to get into real Ghostbusters and the character of Samhain. And he was, again, treated as the spirit of Halloween, given a pumpkin head, and wanted to make every day Halloween. Okay, that last part I'm kind of in. It's like, we could let him win, right? Because every day could be Halloween. Anyway. So, the worst. Oh, okay. The one that hurt me the most. Was True Blood. So, True Blood, it's weird because they got some stuff right. They got a lot of the traditions right. And this was during when they started introducing witches into the mythology. But they got it right for a lot of the mythology, except the name. So I already can't stand when people call Samhain Samhain. They didn't call it Samhain. They made it worse. They added an extra A. They made it Samhain. And hearing it, especially with that weird southern accent that Anna Paquin did, was like, what? Stop. Stop. Just stop. Please stop. I'm begging you to stop. Now, the weird thing was, there was a a comedy that ran on CW for 2 seasons called Reaper, about a schlub working at a warehouse store who got stuck working for the devil. Starred Ray Wise as the oh, it was so good. And in one episode, the devil is lamenting how he missed the festival of Samhain, and he pronounced it correctly. His mythology was a little dicey, but overall, he got points. But here's the thing. Now, all right. So, if Eric Krupke sucked at his research, which, by the way, so did Joss Whedon, but he never committed those kind of sins against the holiday. American Horror Story, on the other hand, especially season 1, did their work and showed it on screen. Now, the first season of American Horror Story was Murder House, which dealt exclusively with ghosts. And they had a 2-part episode for Halloween where they had a character, first off, pronounce Samhain correctly, and then accurately depict all the traditions I detailed to all of you at the beginning of this talk. And because, yes, Murder House was the Rubberman season, correct, Cincinnati? Because the show dealt with ghosts, in the mythology of American Horror Story, ghosts are bound to a location. There are certain locations that if you die there, you become a ghost, but you can never leave there. Except on Halloween, on Samhain. On Samhain, because the veils are thin, the ghosts can leave their location and wander about. They just have to return in the morning. So, American Horror Story got their mythology accurate and then made that mythology story relevant. Now, say what you will about the quality of various seasons of American Horror Story. Season 1 was pretty peak storytelling. Season 3 was pretty good, and I forget what season number it was, but the hotel season was really good, which also dealt with ghosts, and again, played a little with this mythology. Even there was a show on Netflix called, I forget what it was. It was this woman, Christine McConnell, who would make spooky baked goods. And it was done with the Henson Company. They had Muppets, they had a ghost on the show, and their Halloween episode, the ghost was able to leave the house. Again, much like this mythology I'm talking about. Only went 1 season, which I thought was a shame, because I found it very charming and entertaining, and the ghost was played by Dita Von Teese. That's your primer, and so have that. I hope you have found this educational.